Chapter 7. The nature of the self. What is wickedness? It's something you've seen and experienced many times. Whenever something happens that could upset you, remember that you've seen and dealt with it before. You'll find the same things everywhere, in ancient, medieval, and recent stories, in towns and houses. Nothing is new. Everything is common and temporary. Why fear that your philosophical beliefs will lose their power to make you happy? If you keep your understanding of things fresh and alive, you have the power to understand anything that happens. If this is true, why be troubled? What's beyond my understanding doesn't concern me. Keep this mindset, and you'll be fine. Most people would consider themselves lucky if they were granted the chance to live again after death. But you can grant yourself that chance while you're alive. See the world again, as you've seen it before. Public shows, stage plays, herds, conflicts, a bone thrown to hungry dogs, bait for fish, ants carrying burdens, scared mice running around, puppets moved by wires, these are the things of the world. Amidst all this, you must remain calm, kindly disposed, and free from anger. Remember, a person's worth is determined by the value they place on things. Understand every word and action individually. Just as we must understand the purpose of every action, we must also understand the true meaning of every word. Is my reasoning and understanding sufficient for this task? If it is, I'll use it without seeking praise or attention. If it's not, I'll either leave the task to someone else or seek help. Whatever I do, alone or with others, should be for the public good. Remember, many who were once praised are now forgotten, and even those who praised them are long gone. Don't be ashamed to ask for help. Whatever task you undertake should be approached as a soldier approaches a wall to be scaled. If you can't do it alone, don't give up or lose heart. Seek help and continue with courage and enthusiasm. Don't worry about the future. If it's destined to happen, you'll have the same reasoning skills to deal with it as you do for your current situations. Everything in the world is interconnected and holds a certain relevance to everything else. All things are arranged in a specific order, creating a harmonious world. This order is governed by a single God, a single substance, a single law. There is one universal truth for all rational beings, and there is only one ideal state for all beings of the same kind, who share the same reasoning. Material things quickly dissolve into the common substance of the universe, while things that animate the material are quickly absorbed into the common reason of the universe. The fame and memory of anything are quickly forgotten in the grand scheme of the universe. For a rational being, any action is both natural and rational. Just as different body parts form one body, so do rational beings form a dispersed body, all working towards a common goal. You'll understand this better if you often remind yourself that you're a part of a larger body of rational beings. If you view yourself merely as a part, you don't yet love humanity from your heart. The joy you take in being generous isn't yet based on a thorough understanding of the nature of things. You're doing it because it seems like the right thing to do, not because you understand that doing good for others is doing good for yourself. As for external things, let what happens to the things that can be affected by external circumstances happen. If those things want to complain, let them. If I don't perceive what's happened as evil, I'm not harmed, and it's in my power not to perceive it that way. No matter what anyone does or says, you must be good, not for anyone else's sake, but for your own nature. It's like gold, emerald, or purple always reminding themselves that no matter what anyone does or says, they must remain true to their nature. My comfort and security lie in knowing that my understanding, which rules over everything, won't bring trouble or distress upon itself. It won't instill fear or desire. If someone else can make it fear or grief, that's their prerogative. But if it doesn't do so on its own, through false beliefs or assumptions, there's nothing to fear. As for the body, why should I let its pain become my mind's pain? If it can fear or complain, let it. But as for the soul, which is truly capable of feeling fear or grief, you can ensure that it doesn't suffer. Don't lead it to believe or convince it of something that will cause suffering. Understanding is self-sufficient and doesn't need anything else unless it convinces itself that it does. Consequently, it can't be troubled or hindered by anything unless it troubles or hinders itself. Happiness is having a good spirit. So, opinion, why are you here? I swear by the gods, leave as you came, for I don't need you. You came according to your usual habit, which is common to all men. I'm not angry that you came, but now that I've recognized you for what you are, leave. Is anyone foolish enough to fear change, to which all things that didn't exist before owing their existence? And what is more pleasing and familiar to the nature of the universe than change? How could you take a hot bath if the wood that heats it didn't change first? How could you get any nourishment from the food you eat if it didn't change? Can anything useful or beneficial happen without change? So, don't you realize that your death, which is also a change, is part of the nature of the universe and necessary for it? All individual bodies pass through the substance of the universe like a torrent, being of the same nature and working together with the universe, just like the many parts of our bodies work together. How many individuals like Chrysippus, Socrates, and Epictetus have the world's history consumed and forgotten? Keep this in mind when you find yourself obsessing over people or matters, to prevent your thoughts from becoming too engrossed in anything. The only concern that should occupy my mind is ensuring that I don't do anything that goes against the natural order of human existence, whether in the act itself, the manner, or timing of it. The time when you will have forgotten everything is approaching. And the time when you will be forgotten by everyone is also near. While you exist, focus on the most human quality, which is to love those who are wrong with you. This will be possible if you remember that they are your relatives, they sin out of ignorance and against their will, and soon you and they will be no more. Most importantly, they have not harmed you, your mind and understanding have not been degraded by their actions. The nature of the universe, like a lump of wax, may form a horse, then melt it down and reshape it into a tree, then into a human, and then into something else. Each of these forms exists only briefly. If it's not distressing for elements to come together, why should their separation be distressing? An angry expression is unnatural and is often seen on those near death. Even if you completely extinguish anger and passion within yourself, you shouldn't stop there. You should strive to understand that all anger and passion are contrary to reason. If you're not aware of your innocence, if the comfort of a clear conscience that you're acting reasonably is lost, why should you continue to live? Everything you see now is fleeting. The force that governs the world will soon transform them and create similar things from their substances, and then do the same with those, keeping the world fresh and new. Whenever someone wrongs another, consider what he thought was good or evil when he did it. Once you understand this, you'll feel sympathy for him and won't be surprised or angry. Either you're still under the same misconception that what he did or something similar is good, in which case you should forgive him, or you no longer believe that what he considers good or evil is so, in which case you should be kind to him because he's mistaken. Don't imagine future events as if they're happening now, but consider the present ones that benefit you the most and think about how much you'd miss them if they weren't there. Be careful not to become so attached to them that their absence would distress you. Focus on yourself. Your rational mind, if it practices justice and maintains inner peace, will be content without needing anything else. Dismiss all preconceptions, resist irrational desires and emotions, limit your focus to the present, and analyze whatever happens to you or others. Separate all present objects into their form or substance, think about your final moments. Let the guilt of your neighbor's actions rest where it belongs. Consider everything that is said. Let your mind delve into both effects and causes. Be happy with genuine simplicity and modesty, and regard everything between virtue and vice as indifferent. Lastly, love humanity and obey God. All things, he says, are determined by a certain order and arrangement. Even if this only applies to the elements, it's enough to remember that everything in general is determined by a certain order and arrangement, or even if it's just a few things. As for death, it will either result in dispersion, atomization, annihilation, extinction, or transformation. As for pain, unbearable pain is quickly ended by death, and long-lasting pain must be bearable. Meanwhile, the mind, which is everything, can maintain its tranquility by cutting off all interaction and sympathy with the body. Your comprehension isn't worsened by this. As for the parts that are hurting, let them express their pain if they can. As for praise and recognition, consider their mindset and understanding, where they stand, what they avoid and what they pursue, and just like on a beach, whatever was visible before, is soon hidden and covered by the continuous succession of new mounds of sand cast upon one another. So, in this life, all former things are obscured by those that immediately follow. From Plato, he who has a truly lofty mind, who has accustomed himself to the contemplation of all times and all things in general, can this mortal life seem significant to him? It's not possible. So, such a person will not consider death a dreadful thing? Absolutely not. From Antisthenes, it's a noble thing to do good and be criticized for it. It's shameful that the face should be subject to the mind, to be molded and dressed by it as it pleases, and that the mind should not invest as much care to shape and adorn itself in the manner that suits it best. From various poets and comedians, it will be of little use to you to direct your anger and indignation at the things that have happened to you. For those things, they are not aware of it. You will only make yourself a laughingstock to both the gods and men. Our life is harvested like a ripe ear of corn, one is still standing, and another is down. But if I and my children are neglected by the gods, there is a reason for that. If justice is on my side, not to mourn with them, not to tremble. From Plato, my response, full of fairness and justice, would be this: your words are not correct, man. If you think that a person of any worth should consider life or death as a significant risk or danger, and should not rather make this his only concern, to examine his own actions, whether they are just or unjust, whether the actions of a good or a wicked man. For this is the truth, men of Athens. Whatever position a man has chosen for himself, considering it the best for him, or is placed in by lawful authority, I believe he should remain there, disregarding any apparent danger, as one who fears neither death nor anything else, as much as he fears committing something that is vicious and shameful. But, noble sir, consider whether true nobility and true happiness consist in something other than preserving our lives or the lives of others. For it is not the role of a man to desire to live a long life or to value his life while he lives, but rather, he will in these matters entirely refer himself to the gods, and believing what any woman can tell him, that no man can escape death, the only thing that he cares for is this, that while he lives, he may live as well and as virtuously as he can possibly. To look around, and with eyes to follow the course of the stars and planets as though you would run with them, and to constantly consider the various changes of the elements in one another. For such thoughts and imaginations help much to cleanse away the impurities of our earthly life. That is also a fine passage of Plato's, where he speaks of worldly things in these words: you must also look down upon the things of this world, as if from a higher place, as if they were flocks, armies, farmers' labors, marriages, divorces, births, deaths, the turmoil of courts and places of judicature, deserted places, the various nations of barbarians, public festivals, mournings, fairs, markets. How all things on earth are jumbled together, and how amazingly things that are contrary to each other contribute to the beauty and perfection of this universe. To look back on things of former ages, as on the many changes and transformations of various monarchies and republics. We can also foresee future things, for they will all be of the same kind. It is impossible for them to deviate from the harmony that is now begun by the things that are currently happening in the world. Therefore, it makes no difference whether a person observes the things of this life for 40 years or for 10,000 years, for what more will he see? And as for those parts that came from the earth, they will return to the earth again, and those that came from heaven, they will also return to those heavenly places. Whether it be a mere dissolution and unraveling of the complex entanglements of confused atoms, or some kind of dispersion of the simple and indestructible elements. With food and drinks and various charms, they try to divert the course, so they might not die. Yet we must endure that blast of wind that comes from above, no matter how much we toil and labor. He has a stronger body and is a better wrestler than I. So what? Is he more generous? Is he more modest? Does he handle adversity with more calmness, or his neighbor's offenses with more patience and kindness than I? When actions are performed in accordance with reason, which is shared by both gods and men, there's no valid reason for grief or sorrow. If an action is initiated and pursued in alignment with human nature, its benefits can be reaped without fear of harm. At any place and time, you have the power to accept what life, by divine design, brings you, to interact justly with others, and to carefully evaluate every thought before accepting it as truth. Don't focus on others' thoughts and perceptions, but instead, concentrate on your own path, the one that nature, both universal and personal, guides you on. Everyone is obligated to act in accordance with their individual nature, which is designed for a specific purpose. Just as inferior things serve superior ones, rational beings are meant to serve each other. The primary goal of every person should be to contribute to the common good, resisting bodily desires and impulses. The rational mind, by its nature, should rule over the sensory and appetitive faculties, which are more animalistic. The mind, in its proper state, refuses to be dominated by these lower faculties and rightfully asserts its command over the body. The third characteristic of human nature is to avoid rash actions and errors. If the mind stays focused on these principles, it will achieve its purpose and, consequently, happiness. Live as if you were meant to die and devote whatever time you have left to leading a virtuous life. Embrace whatever fate brings you, for what could be more rational? If misfortune befalls you, remember those who have faced similar situations. They may have grieved, complained, or expressed shock, but they are all gone now. Do you want to follow their example? Or would you rather focus on how to make the best of such situations? Any situation can be beneficial if you strive to act in a way that you can respect and approve of. Remember these principles and apply them as the situation requires. Look within, there lies the source of all good, a spring that never runs dry if you keep digging deeper. Maintain a steady, controlled posture, just as you control your facial expressions, to convey seriousness and propriety. Exercise this control over your entire body, but do so naturally, without affectation. The art of living is more akin to wrestling than dancing. Both require you to be prepared for whatever comes your way, ensuring that nothing can knock you down. Constantly remind yourself of the true nature of those whose approval you seek. Understanding their perspectives and desires will make you more forgiving of their faults and less dependent on their praise. Remember that no soul willingly rejects truth, justice, temperance, kindness, or any virtue. Keeping this in mind will make you more compassionate and patient with others. Whenever you're in pain, remember that it's not something to be ashamed of, nor can it corrupt your reasoning, which governs everything. Neither the essence of pain nor its purpose, which is to serve the common good, can degrade your understanding. You can find some comfort in most pains from this teaching of Epicurus, that pain is neither unbearable nor everlasting. Stick to the true boundaries and limits of reason and don't succumb to opinion. Also, consider that many things often trouble and upset you, as you're not armed with patience against them, because they're not usually classified as pains. These things can include restless sleep, enduring heat, or lacking appetite. So, when any of these things make you discontented, remind yourself with these words: pain has defeated you, your courage has failed. Be careful not to behave towards evil men in the same way ordinary people behave towards each other. How can we know if Socrates was truly exceptional and of such an extraordinary character? His glorious death, his clever debates with the sophists, his diligent endurance of cold, his noble refusal to fetch innocent Salaminius, none of these are sufficient proof. Nor is the fact that he walked the streets with great dignity and majesty a point raised against him by his adversaries. We can't be sure if this was true or not. More importantly, if it was true, we should consider whether it's commendable or not. What we should investigate is the nature of Socrates' soul, whether his sole aim and pursuit in life was to behave justly towards men and reverently towards the gods. Whether he never unnecessarily upset himself over others' wickedness, nor ever condoned anyone's evil actions or intentions out of fear or friendship. Whether he never marveled at or considered unbearable the things that happened to him by divine will. And finally, whether he never allowed his mind to sympathize with the body's senses and emotions. It's quite possible for someone to be divine and yet remain completely unknown. Remember this, as well as the fact that true happiness comes from very few things. Even if you despair of ever being a good logician or naturalist, it doesn't prevent you from being generous, humble, charitable, or obedient to God. You can live out your days cheerfully and willingly, even if people criticize you endlessly and wild beasts tear your body to pieces. What could prevent the mind from maintaining its own peace and tranquility, which comes from correctly judging the things that happen to it and effectively using all present opportunities? This means that the mind's judgment can say to any adversity, "You are exactly what you are, according to your true nature, even though you may seem different in the eyes of opinion." And its discretion can say to the present situation, "You are what I was looking for." Whatever is present will always be welcomed by me as a suitable subject for my rational and social faculties to work on. The main point here is that it can be used for the praise of God or the benefit of humanity. Everything that happens in the world has a proper reference to either God or man in the natural order of things. There's nothing new or difficult in nature, but everything is familiar and manageable. A person has achieved perfection in life and behavior when they live each day as if it were their last, never overly passionate, yet not so indifferent as to be insensitive, and free from all deceit. Can the immortal gods bear with such a multitude of sinners for so many ages without resentment, not only tolerating them but also providing for their needs? And can you, who exist for a fleeting moment, not bear with them any longer? You, who are one of these sinners yourself? It's absolutely ridiculous for anyone to tolerate vice and wickedness in themselves, which they can control, and try to suppress it in others, which is utterly impossible. Whenever our rational and social faculties encounter something that offers no satisfaction for reason or practice for charity, they rightly consider it unworthy. When you've done well and another has benefited from your action, don't foolishly expect a third thing in addition, like recognition from others for your good deeds, or a favor in return for your help. No one gets tired of what benefits them. Every action that aligns with our nature is beneficial. Don't tire of doing what's good for you, especially when it benefits others as well. Before the universe was created, it deliberated and resolved to create the world. Since then, everything that happens is either a consequence of that initial deliberation, or the result of the universe's rational part caring for particular things, especially its reasonable and principal creations. Reflecting on this will bring you peace. Summary of Chapter 7. In this chapter, the author contemplates the nature of the self and the idea of individuality. He encourages self-reflection to gain a deeper understanding of one's own character and motivations. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength.